Hello, my name is Jeff Bulmer. I am one of the programmers at the Academy of Death Racers Festival, and I am here with George Siougas, whose short, Oscar-shortlisted short, The One Note Man, is playing as one of our special presentations at the third annual Academy of Death Racers Festival, which will be going until January 21st. The first thing I want to say is thank you for submitting to our festival. And the second thing I would like to say is congratulations on being on the Oscar shortlist.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Great to meet you, and thank you for having me. And I think your festival is great. I'm really, really pleased to be a part of it. Thank you for having me.
So this short, I loved this short as soon as I saw it. This was one that was submitted fairly late to our festival, so I saw it basically as soon as the festival went up. And, you know, I saw it, I thought about it for a day, and at the end of that day, I immediately reached out because I wanted to pick your brain about this short. There's so much in this short that really resonated with me. And I think the first thing that I wanted to talk about is just where did the inspiration for this short come from? How did this come together?
Well, there's a cool Hitchcock connection to this. I was going through a Hitchcock phase and watching his movies, and I reread the Truffaut book and just watching interviews, and I came across an interview which was actually an audio interview. There was no picture. And he was discussing his film, The Man Who Knew Too Much, with Doris Day and Jimmy Stewart. And that film starts with a wide shot of an orchestra as the camera zooms in and isolates this musician who's patiently waiting for his turn until eventually he picks up his cymbals and plays a single crashes his cymbals together, play that single crash of cymbals, and then the caption comes up saying, "A single crash of cymbals and how it rocked the lives of an American family." And Hitchcock describes how he got the inspiration for that from a 1921 cartoon in the Funnies by an artist called H.M. Bateman, British artist, called The One Note Man. And Hitchcock proceeds to describe what this cartoon was about a musician who gets up in the morning and has his breakfast and puts his clothes on, rides the bus, climbs the steps to Albert Hall, sits in his place, waits for his turn, plays one note, gets permission to get up, he takes the bus home, brushes his teeth, goes to bed, and that's it. And that's where the cartoon ends. And I thought, wow, what a clean idea for a short film. It made me laugh right away. But immediately after that knee-jerk reaction, I started asking questions about this guy. Why does he play one note? Is that from choice? Obviously he can play more notes. Is he depressed? Is he happy? Is he going through loss? I just wanted to find out more about this character and spend more time with him. And eventually, I think the question that the film asks is, how do you handle change? So when you're comfortable, when you're in your comfort zone and you're complacent, and we've all been there at some point in our lives, I think, and then change taps us on the shoulder, and in life, anything important never comes to us this way. It's always like this. Oh, where did this come from? How does he react? How does he handle that change? Does he venture into the unknown and, you know, deal with the fear and security of unknown territory, or does he fold back to his into his comfort zone? So it was interesting to me, that question. And then I developed this idea, the central idea, into a love story, because you know, something which all of us, none of us can resist, can ignore, is the call of love. So, and I thought, you know, I wanted to make it into a really warm love story about perseverance and finding your own voice and Yeah, and those themes I just talked about. Yeah.
And on the note you bring up of change, any love story is going to require that the characters change. So it sort of fits very naturally into that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
One thing that I noticed in that really stuck with me in this short is well, I think you communicate the idea of change really well through a lot of the subtleties even in this, because I think the scene that to me was the funniest, more for the implied joke, because it's a very serious scene, but it's the scene where he plays his note and then his sleeve gets caught in his bassoon. So he's trying to untangle it and he starts hearing the rest of the song. And to me, the funny part of that is that it's implied that he's never heard the rest of the song.
He's never heard
in this. Yeah.
Yeah. He never has. You're right. Because he'd get up and leave. Mm-hmm. So he would be missing out on, and the idea of just, we follow a routine and we are boxed into a sort of, I don't know, a sort of existence, which is very confined, and we get used to a certain routine of doing things a certain way, and maybe we miss out on stuff that's out there and we don't see. They're right there. All he had to do is just stay and listen to the rest of the piece, and even glance at this couple who he passes by every day without looking at, and there it is. Love is all around him. It's there, obviously, in the world. He's just not aware of it. He's because of his loss and because of his mindset, he is not receptive to that until the moment of his own calling, until the moment of his awakening, which is, of course, when he hears the violin first, before he sees who plays it and falls in love.
So I'm curious about how you decided to structure this short, because what I noticed when I was watching it is, rather than a straightforward delivered narrative, it felt to me more like it really reminded me of something like Groundhog Day. He's not in a time loop, but in a way he kind of is. Every one of his days is exactly the same. There's the repetitive elements of this mirror the ones of that movie, where he's doing the exact same thing and it's a little bit different, but only really if you look at the environment around him. So I was curious if you could speak to how you decided to structure the storytelling of this.
Sure. Well, the structure is divided into two parts, into three parts. So the first part is his routine and the life of the life where love is absent. And then there's the part where the love is present and he needs to do something about it. And then there's failure in that effort. And then there's a new kind of with renewed resolve, he sort of comes up with a new idea. So essentially it's structured before love and after love. And everything before love, as you said, that Groundhog Day-esque kind of structure is there really to tell the story of who he is as a person. He's very meticulous. He's obviously a little OCD, as we all are, with stuff that we like the toothbrush. He likes it facing one way or another. So we find comfort in these things, in our routine and the way we like things to be done. So in order to establish that, that's what that first part is all about. It tells you a lot about the character. And a huge inspiration for that was actually Hitchcock, with a film of his called Rear Window, in which, in the beginning, Hitchcock doesn't leave the apartment for the whole film, which is absolutely incredible storytelling. But in the beginning, without dialogue, we learn everything we need to know about Jimmy Stewart's character just by showing his broken camera Okay, he's a photographer. Okay, he's got a broken leg. Oh, okay, he likes adventure, therefore. Yeah, you know, pictures of wildlife and different kind in exotic places. Oh, he likes to travel, so he's an adventurer. And we learn everything about the neighbors also by showing that. And then once love comes to him, everything starts to change. It disrupts his routine. It disrupts everything. First of all, the color red is introduced in the film for the first time when we see her. We see her red shoes. We see her. There's the presence of a color red, and then and then in the park, the couple has a red bag. It's subtle, but it's there, and by design, very intentional. So he only has in his arsenal. He has, how can he attract the attention of this woman? He only has one note to do it. And so he tries playing his one note in different ways to attract her attention, as if she's saying, I'm right here. He even distorts the note, much to the annoyance of the conductor. But that fails to attract her attention. It fails because he hasn't really veered off track yet. He's altering his ways, but he's still down the same track. In order to succeed, he needs to step completely out in the open, exposed, and take that plunge into the ocean. And that happens in the third part, when he wakes up as if he's had an epiphany. He probably dreamt about it. And he's rushing because he's had this idea. He wants to do something. And he realized that by playing nothing, that's how he attracts her attention. By doing nothing, of course, the downside is that the upside is that now he's got her attention, but the downside are the consequences. He's completely disrupted the thing. He risks being fired, being humiliated. Everything's at stake. Everything is at stake. And that's what he had to go through. But then divine intervention comes in. And the conductor, who's very much inspired by Disney's Fantasia and the Wizard. If you remember the Wizard and Mickey Mouse, that sketch with the broomsticks when they come alive and Mickey's carrying the water and gets out of hand. The Wizard is my conductor, a scolding parent, but also someone there to help the child when parent realizes that the child has courage and needs a bit of divine intervention, a very ancient Greek dramatic tool. So that is the journey of this hero. And in writing it, you know, whenever I write anything, there's four very important questions I always ask, which I need to answer about the hero. And one is, what does he want? He wants the girl. Why does he want it? Well, because he's lonely and his life is mired in routine and his spark has gone out. What happens if he doesn't get it? Which is, he will continue living a life mired in routine and will be lonely forever, and the toothbrush will always face left. And what are the obstacles keeping him from getting it? And those are he only has one note in his arsenal to charm the girl, and there's a very limited supply of roses. So yeah, that's the structural plan, if you wish.
But I think it's kind of telling at the end too, that in that very last act, he's got no roses left, he's got no notes left, and then, you know, in order to sort of finish his character arc, he basically changes the entire composition. He suddenly becomes, you know, a many note man all the end.
Which is, of course, a metaphor for jazz, which is what it becomes from then on. Which free form, music, anything goes, and also it's very liberating, is a metaphor for how he will live his life from then on. As Ian McKellan says in the end, once upon a time, there was a musical man who lived a careful life, he says in the beginning, but in the end, he says who lived a carefree life. Every day was the same as the previous one in the beginning, he says, and that's how he liked it. But in the end, every day was different from the one before, and that's just how I liked it. So it reflects his arc.
Just because you brought up Ian McKellan, I do want to talk a little bit about the casting of this, and I wanted to start with the biggest name on the cast list, Ian McKellan. How was it casting this film, and how was it working with each of the actors? I do want to start with Ian McKellan.
I'd like to start with Jason Watkins.
Let's do that.
We'll get to Ian McKellan, of course, what a legend. But we'll start with Jason because, of course, he is the heart of the movie and he is the one-note man. And I became aware of Jason when I saw him in a show called The Lost Honor of Christopher Jeffries. And it's a 2-hour drama on British television, and he won a BAFTA for it. He's just incredible in it. And then I saw him in The Crown in season 3, and he played the British Prime Minister. And I saw an actor who used his entire body, as all great actors do, to communicate the script, not just his face. And I thought, oh my God, this is an actor I really want to work with. So I sent him the script, and he loved it. And I couldn't believe it. I thought it was the greatest day. And he said yes. And Jason, it was just a marvel to watch him use, as I said, all his body to communicate the script in ways very similar to Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton and my heroes, because I love old movies and Hollywood movies, and I'm a huge fan of those amazing people, and but also later Wyler Ford, David Lean, Hitchcock, of course, every Disney and Pixar movie. But Jason is really an extraordinary actor. So he learned to play the bassoon. He now owns a bassoon because he fell in love with the instrument, and he's learning to play it. He played his one note, of course. But also he learned to play his solo in the end, the jazzy part. And it's just testament to his incredible professionalism. Louisa Clein, who plays a violinist, she can play the violin for real. I've worked with Louisa before on another show here. And I wanted that authenticity. I didn't want the audience to go, I can see they're not playing, musicians or people can read music. Crystal Yu, again, incredible. I was aware of her from a show called Casualty here in Britain, the BBC show. And Paul Barber from the Florist, from The Full Monty, of course. And then Ian McKellan, we just sent him the script. We sent him the script, and he loved the script. But also he saw the film because we approached him. He was the fairy dust to our, Christmas story. And we sent him the script and the film. He saw the film, he loved it, and he just said yes. And he was the loveliest man and the most generous man, and what a legend. It was just incredible. And just listening to his voice just warms your soul. And it was just one of the most unforgettable experiences of my career.
I did want to comment a little bit on the other performances. I thought that the physical performances in this, they obviously had to be incredible because there is no dialogue in this film, but I was blown away, especially by Crystal Yu. I loved her as the conductor. She was hilarious in every scene. And Jason Watkins, of course, his performance he can communicate so much without any dialogue, and just through even the ways that he tries to that he plays that note differently. You see on his face what he's trying to do and that he's not quite getting it, but he can communicate so much. He
had such command of his craft. You're so right. Yeah. And
it's very impressive. I didn't realize that I am not that musical myself. So I would be very easy to fool if they weren't playing the instruments themselves, but it is amazing to hear that was all authentic. I did actually want to ask about that at one point.
Well, it wasn't. So what Jason played and what Louisa played isn't the actual sound which you hear. That was recorded by Stephen Warbeck's, our Oscar-winning composers, collaborators, and amazing musicians. and they recorded that for us. But Louisa could actually play the violin and totally mimed the actual notes. What was produced out of her violin wasn't live, of course. That was recorded separately. But they could absolutely do it. We had a professional. We had a bassoonist on set, an advisor, and he said, "I buy it." He's playing it. It's incredible. But you mentioned the no dialogue thing, and think about it. All my favorite movie moments are without dialogue. And this was not a decision I made, it's sort of a conscious decision of I'm going to make a film with no dialogue. It kind of happened organically with this thing. Maybe because the cartoon didn't have bubbles. I don't know. But I was writing it and I got to page 5, no dialogue, 6, no dialogue, 7, 8. I thought, okay, I can tell the story with no dialogue. Because always the mindset also is if you can show it, don't say it. That's good. That's a good mindset anyway. But all my favorite moments in movies are the moments that make me feel, evoke an emotional reaction in me without dialogue. And I think, cinema's most powerful tools are performance, image, and music, in my opinion. So with this film, I had this opportunity to tell a story utilizing those 3 tools at their max, but also stripping away all the frills and just making it as clean as possible, and without anything being on the nose, and just letting performance shine. And it was just a great film to work on, very different from what I've done before.
So we've talked a bit about the 2 of those elements, the visuals and the performance, but I did want to touch a little more on the music. Originally, when I was watching this, I was trying to figure out, I actually Shazammed it at one point. I was trying to figure out what the orchestral piece they were playing was. That is probably original from Stephen Warbeck for this, isn't it?
Everything you hear is original music composed by Stephen Warbeck. Absolutely. Everything. We had to pre-record because I shot the orchestra stuff. We shot the playback. So Stephen came on board really soon, really early in the process, maybe 5 months before we shot, because we had to discuss, and also he had to record that piece, which I needed to shoot it. I needed that. So, but also with this film, it was very precise, this process, because I storyboarded the whole film, but specifically the scene where he falls in love, as you mentioned, with the thread and his sleeve gets caught and all that. I prevised that scene. So I provided Stephen with an animated storyboard because I wanted to make sure that I had enough music to cover the shots which I knew I needed to tell the story. So I would go to Stephen and go, look at this. And he had composed something, and it was a little short. So I was able to say, we need 14 seconds more of violin solo. So it was extremely precise, this process. And very, very, very new to me, but also unique and very interesting.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you. I wanted to talk about the music and what it was like working with Stephen Warbeck. And
he's incredible. He's the warmest, loveliest man. So open and generous, and obviously a genius. And it was just great being in his sphere. I'll never forget when we were in the studio recording that piece, which the orchestra plays, and he had his people there and his musicians, and he was talking to them just like a director talks to their actors in terms of what he wanted to feel. So he was really focused on the performance of the individual players, especially the violin. And it occurred to me, oh my God, that's very much like directing an actor. And it was just a fascinating process for me to observe him work and be in his sphere.
Um, all right, I have to switch gears again. Apologies for that. But I did want to. You mentioned a while ago when you were talking about Ian McKellan, you said he was the fairy dust on our Christmas story, and I was actually a little curious. Why is this a Christmas story? I went back and I looked at the original comic. The original comic is not time sensitive to any particular moment of the year. Why make this a Christmas story?
Because loneliness comes to the foreground a lot more if you set it during Christmas. No one should be alone in Christmas, really, during Christmas. And I guess we feel for the hero even more so. Also, it creates a magical atmosphere. The minute you see Christmas trees and the decorations or lack of, because when the Christmas tree lights are off, when he's depressed, that automatically tells a story. So the presence of Christmas tells a story, but the absence of Christmas also tells a story. And this was a film where I had to really milk every single tool I had to tell a story as economically as possible. So Christmas was another tool for me to communicate his emotional state. Also, it makes the film more timeless in a way, because I love Christmas stories, and this is a film that people can enjoy every Christmas, not just now. And films tend to be, you watch a film and then it's gone or whatnot. I would love for this film to be something which people come back to every Christmas, like we have our go-to Christmas films like Love Actually and Die Hard, although some people would say it's not our Christmas. Yes, it is. Or Alf, whatever your Christmas movie is. And my personal is It's a Wonderful Life. So there you have it, Christmas.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Just this. Your note about milking all of the details, I really appreciate right at the end, that moment where he doesn't play. Another subtle touch I really appreciate, there's the audience member who's falling asleep, and the fact that there's no music wakes him up right there, which there's another really funny implied joke there that he's been to every one of these performances, I imagine. Like, why does he come to every one, especially if he's just going to fall asleep every time?
That's it.
And it's such a lovely short. I really, really enjoyed this. I have watched it 3 times, and I'm going to watch it plenty more. And I hope that, just because we got into so many of the details of this short, I really hope that people have already seen it. But if they haven't, I really hope they will go and watch it at the 3rd Annual Academy of Death Racers Festival, which continues until January 21st. The One Note Man is playing there, and it is playing as one of our special presentations. It is eligible for all audience awards. So please go and watch it, vote for it, watch it a couple of times. There's so much to get out of this short, and I notice something new every time, and I'm going to continue noticing something new every time. So I really hope that people enjoy this short as much as I have. Thank you, George Siougas, for making time for this and for submitting your film.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It's great to meet you. Great to talk to you. I love your enthusiasm, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it.